Hi, everyone. You can't see it, but I just waved, and I think Evan's dying from that gesture. We watched God Friended Me this week, and season 1, there's only one season currently, episode 3, and it was a Badwatch.
It really was, and I like to think of God Friended Me as the only television show brave enough to ask, what if God could send dick pics?
Oh no.
Welcome to Badwatch.
I just have like a lot of glowing. I think Evan just saw my face as I'm trying to envision.
Think of all the possibilities of celestial dick pic.
I'm either thinking like Cthulhu-esque horror stuff or like glowing angles and confusion.
You know, it is all about angles, I'm told, for those sorts of photos.
Oh, no, yeah. Evan, I hate you forever.
But that's the so if we're to believe that God has a Facebook account, which is the entire premise of this show.
Oh, it's bad.
So there's a Hot to Trot podcast host. What's his name? Miles?
Attractive black man?
Attractive black man.
That's his name.
He's also, okay, there was a very short-lived show starring the same actor and Lea Michele from Glee.
Okay.
And that whole show was about how he was an up-and-coming rapper in his teens and won the mayor race in some city. And this show only existed for a matter of episodes or months. It didn't make it to a full season. But I remember seeing the commercials for that and thinking, so they're doing Ben Wyatt's origin story?
Like from Parks and Rec? Yeah.
I was like, they're just blatantly ripping off Ben Wyatt.
Yeah. So this guy's found a new a vehicle for his fame and fortune.
He must have an amazing agent because he is not that talented.
And well, I mean, he keeps getting stuff that's not that great.
That's true. He's not getting like the new Guillermo del Toro. That's fair. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess let's. So his character, he is a podcaster. He's an atheist, an outspoken atheist, and he's got the most pretentious sounding podcast title ever of the Millennial Prophet.
Yes, he's the Millennial Prophet.
Ugh.
And I'm
grimacing just thinking about that
everything,
name.
basically everything about him is terrible. Sort of like he could easily be a crossover character in Gilmore Girls as one of like the Yale people, except he's black, so it would have to be a reboot.
A gritty posh reboot.
Rory's writing for like some weekly zine with self-printed.
Yes, yeah, self e-printed. I don't even know what.
It's only available on Kindle. But this episode, episode 3 of season 1, was Heavenly Taco Truck.
Yes.
Now, is that literally the name of the taco truck?
It was. So that's not. So it made it more okay for me.
That does make it slightly more okay. But I was honestly, the taco truck, the titular taco truck, is really only in the show for 30 seconds.
Yeah, but it's like where everything spins out of control from our hero here.
It is sort of the anchor point.
The series of events that occur, the butterfly effect that occurs immediately following the taco truck adventure. Now that's the whole thing. The whole premise, and I imagine the other episodes are like this too, is that this God character, Facebook friend person, like, we can get into whether or not it's actually God. It's not.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler. But this God character is like telling him to go do things, and making him ask questions that's causing him to lose his followers in his podcast, or like go places because and he's trying to figure out who's doing this, because this person, whoever's sending him messages or liking things or recommending friends to him, are like, there's like adventures that are spawning because of this. And it's like in my mind, it's just like, this is someone who has way too much time on their hands following around this one person.
Yes, and truly the only stakes in this episode are the number of subscribers attractive black man has to his podcast, Millennial Prophet.
That's really it. That's the whole driver.
That's basically it.
He gets his wallet stolen, but there was nothing in it.
Yes.
Like,
his older sister is an openly gay woman who just moved in with her partner
in the hugest New York City,
the most palatial New York City apartment I have ever seen. I immediately assumed that her partner was independently wealthy.
Yeah. It's gargantuan.
It's enormous. And then their father is a pastor or priest. I couldn't tell if he was Catholic.
I didn't get that either. I don't think they gave any hints away on that. But he was, he was married and had children, so he's not a Catholic at that point, or maybe
that's a fair point.
So I know we can cross a couple religions out.
You're onto something there. Also, in true Disney film fashion, the mother is dead, and I really can't remember any of these characters' names.
Oh no. The other, like, the main thing is, like, the premise is kind of, I thought it was an interesting premise, and then it just went into, like, campiness. Like I think the main line they're going with is, like, everyone's connected and you should be nice to people because you never know what your impact will have, or sort of like how positive an impact you can have on the world. Like, I think that's the whole idea behind the show, which is a nice fluffy thing, but
it sounds like a 90-minute film, though, not a series of television that was just renewed for second season.
I guess it has a following, and like I was watching a review on this episode specifically, and like the people I was watching, they really like enjoyed it, and I was like, why?
It's, first of all, it's very boring. There's like, the show is so bland that it's hard. We almost didn't record this episode because there's not a lot. There's really no meat on these bones to even
lean pickings.
Really lean pickings. It's very boring. It's very bland, and that's largely because instead of having a plot for any of these episodes, it's all about divine intervention in Millennial Prophet's life.
Yeah.
And but we learn in the first couple episodes that the God Facebook account friends Millennial Prophet, and he starts suggesting friends, or capital H God, capital H he God, or they. I don't know. The cosmology is so confusing already. But God suggests friends to Millennial Prophet. Millennial Prophet then finds these people because
why would you do any of this?
He's some sort of investigator, rather than be like a normal person and think, I don't know this.
How about I just block this dude? Because this is weird.
I'm gonna block this person, and I'm not gonna go friend this stranger who he suggested to me. But he does, because he's an atheist, and of course that makes sense. And he then that was
my initial thing. I was like, why is he even doing this? Doesn't he have his own life to lead? Like,
no, apparently, because he's fighting with his father, and it's really dumb. But he follows up on the first friend suggestion from God, and it's a reporter who's played by a brunette white person who has zero personality or charisma.
Yeah, there's a lot, and like part of that, I think it's just constant in the writing. I was just constantly like low level cringe, just constantly just like. There's
nothing like, you can tell that every character was written by this one person, it feels like, because they all read so similar. Like, there's almost nothing that makes any of them stand out.
Yeah, it was. Now that you say it like that, it was just the samey.
It was all just the same. And so she meets up with Millennial. I almost said hooks up. That's coming later. We suspect.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of will they, won't they.
There's so much will they, won't lay. Will they, won't lay. Exactly.
I like that.
Yep. Freudian slip right there. You're welcome, guys. But she says, no, I'm following him for the stories.
Because she's writing these, she's going on these tales, these adventures, and writing them up, and like everyone loves them. Apparently they're amazing.
And also,
it's like the episodes aren't that good. How good are the stories?
And she's helping Millennial Prophet sort of dig deep into who's behind the God account. And their whole thing is, I guess when they met, he helped journalist connect with her estranged mother, was, I think,
Something.
briefly mentioned in passing.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe.
know if she was like adopted or her mother faked her own death, which all of a sudden this could be a much more interesting show. But this the estranged, the no longer estranged mother is not in this episode, so we'll never know.
Yeah.
But
Because I'm not watching anymore.
nope, I can't do it. First of all, also, Andy told me this was a half-hour program, and he was wrong. It is an hour program, and 42 minutes of my life I'll never get back. But they're friends and hanging out, and Millennial Prophet has a coworker friend who's Latino and very awkward. He's dating someone.
Trying to I think she just views him as a friend mostly. That's he complained about being in the fun zone because friend zone has some problematic overture.
Yeah, it's very weird, but by the end of the episode she's like jumping into his arms on stage after doing karaoke,
which was weird too.
It was very weird, especially since it wasn't nearly as good as the karaoke scene in The Crying Game, which is incredible and everyone should watch it.
I haven't seen that.
Go Goodwatch Jr.
Goodwatch Jr.
It's amazing. That whole movie is really good, actually, but we don't have time for that now. Also, that's really the roommate's entire arc. He's dating
for this episode. Yeah,
he's dating this woman who clearly likes him, but he thinks he's in the friend zone, and then he sings karaoke, and she jumps into his arms.
Yeah,
and they probably live happily ever after.
No, they need some drama on this show. They're not getting it from the regular
Maybe she's
episodes.
the God account.
Ooh.
That would be a dumb twist.
Also boring.
Yeah, just equally
boring.
stupid. But yeah.
So this episode is going like it starts out like we get a couple of introductions to some people. We're figuring stuff out, and then he sees that the God account has liked a taco truck, and so he's like, "Let's go to the taco truck." And it's like not around the corner; it's like a ways away. And I was like, "Aren't you like?" He was at his job, and they're like, "Let's just go to the taco truck," and then he doesn't return to work for the rest of the day.
And also, he gave his 2 weeks notice at this job, and I guess just continued showing up because apparently in one of the earlier episodes he was going to make it as an independent podcaster. He didn't need this bullshit job where he doesn't actually do any work. And then when he loses half of his subscribers for, I guess, saying that he wanted to investigate his faith because of this God account, and he was going to talk to people, he lost half of his subscribers.
Because atheists are very fickle and angry, and also curse you using God insulting language. Like one of them told him to go to hell, and I was like, but
sort of your whole thing is that you don't believe in that.
Yeah, it was like that's not from an atheist really. Then you wouldn't. That doesn't even really compute. It just and they made a joke in the episode. They're like, that's a weird thing for an atheist to say. I was like, yeah, it sort of is.
Yeah, that sounds like maybe you should have given that one a quick rewrite, but now that time has passed. Alas. So he leaves, goes to this taco truck with journalist friend and roommate friend, and they're eating tacos, and nothing is happening. But then a young youth, a hooded youth.
Well, first they're like, all right, so he liked this taco truck.
Right,
so what we'll do is we'll try and message him.
CSI on
we'll
this
message him and see who gets on the phone. And I looked over at Evan, and because we watched this together, I looked over at Evan and I went, everyone's on their phone all the time. What do you mean? Like you're gonna identify because no one will be on their phone in this. Everyone, put your phone down unless you get a message from me right now.
It's literally a taco truck that parked in some plaza where there's no seating. Literally, everyone's just standing around eating.
But there's
tacos.
like 20 people, and then so they do this message thing, and then they spend like 10-15 seconds cutting to different patrons, checking if people are on their
And the most unbelievable thing was that none of them were on their phones, which was very disappointing. It could have been hilarious if everyone was on their phone, but no, that's
so stupid. I was like, what?
It was really frustrating to watch, and then they're ogling everyone in the crowd basically, and a pickpocket runs up and takes Millennial Prophet's wallet, and they chase after him, but he gets away. And then the God account suggests a friend to Millennial Prophet who is a retired cop who now works as a private investigator and is far too talented of an actor for this television program.
Yes, very much so. I can't remember what actor it is, but I've seen him. He's been in a bunch of stuff. I like him.
He was the dad of the missing girl in The Killing.
Wasn't he in Dexter too?
Yes.
He was. It was like one of the cops in Dexter, working alongside Dexter's sister.
No, you're thinking of a Latino gentleman who he does look very similar to. This man is just white.
Oh, okay.
He's a white man. But yeah, go check out The Killing. I only watched the first couple episodes, but he's the dad in it. He's also great in that show. But anyway, I digress. So they accept this again.
So they're like, yeah, let's go talk to him.
I'm an
He's the
atheist,
perfect
but I'm
one.
going to follow God's lead on this one. And they go talk to him. He's a private investigator. And then they follow him through Central Park.
He doesn't go back to work. The journalist comes with him because he's the story.
He's the story. She's on the case.
And then I love that this is at one point. This is the point where he gets a text from his sister or something about like what's going on between her and their dad. And he's like,
Yeah.
I gotta go talk to my dad. And I was like,
Wasn't he late for meeting him for dinner or something? There's that later.
I think the dinner happened early. I don't.
There's a dinner where the father and son like snipe at each other.
Yeah,
It's very
he arrives.
uncomfortable.
He arrives late. Father and son snipe at each other, and the girl sister announces that she's moved in with her SO, and then later. I don't remember what the
Later, you see their amazing apartment.
But then they're like Millennial Prophet is following with the journalists going after
PI man.
the PA going after their target, and he's like, I got to go talk to my dad. So he jaunts off to meet his dad at the church and have a chat. And I was like, you could have just called him.
Yeah,
I was like,
but
what?
This show, you can tell there's such a lack of imagination in the writers' room because, like, a lot of shows have really struggled with the advent of everyone having a cell phone because it's so easy to communicate with people, and that's why I can't stand the show Modern Family, which suffers from there's some miscommunication and no one talks to each other and hilarity ensues. It's the same in every fucking episode, and I hate that show. Although it has a very talented cast, I will say, but it's just like they could do so much more with those talented people. It's very frustrating. But Millennial Prophet runs off. The journalist is like, "What do I do now?"
Well, yeah, this was like
is
the moment
his dad
for
the story? This pastor man.
So journalist follows PI, and it's like I was like, oh, so this is so they can be alone and bond and discuss about things and
Yes.
do some exposition for the audience. Got
And
it.
the PI like taps her on the shoulder, and he's like, "You're very bad at this." And it's like, "Yes, she is."
Oh, that's because they followed him, right?
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
tried following them.
She's wearing like a bright yellow sundress in the middle of the park,
Right.
surveilling him.
He's like
surveilling an ex-cop.
Yeah, and he's like goes up. This is it's like so they're trying to figure out why God recommended him, and so they're like, let's spend a day and follow him. Again, no one's working. It's like Friends, but even sillier.
Yes.
They're following him. I was like, he's gonna notice them, obviously.
Yes.
And then he does, and he goes, you guys are terrible at this. And that's when the whole transition.
Yeah.
He's on the bridge with a flower, and he's mourning the loss of his wife.
Yes.
We find out that's character's tragedy.
Yes. And so PI and journalists inexplicably start hanging out. Mm-hmm. He found out she was following him, and he's like, "Let's hang." Which, of course, that's the thing a PI would do. Yeah. And I'm not even sure if he had agreed at this point to take the
he did. No, he agreed initially
to find the pickpocket.
He agreed initially, and he's like, "You guys will tell me what this is really about at some point later."
That's right.
And then they followed him, and then he was like, "Tell me what's actually going on." So then they told him about the God account thing, and it was like, like they regaled him with that, and I was like, "Oh, this is just kind of stupid and boring. Like, why are you even doing this?"
And it was so funny because when they're initially talking to the PI. He's like, "What was in the wallet? You know, what?
Why is it so important?
And
it's a wallet."
He's like, "Oh, nothing." And then Millennial Prophet realizes that's a really dumbass thing to say. And he's like, "Has sentimental value, yeah." And the journalist is like, taking furious notes because all this is going to be in her feature later. Also, okay, this is another similar to the Netflix Marvel TV shows. It is absurd the number of people in those shows and in God Friended Me who apparently make a living working full-time as journalists. Because that's not a thing. No, it hasn't been since 2004. It's so weird that there's all these people running around well, I'm a journalist. It's no, you're a journalist and a Lyft driver and a blogger and you have an Instagram account for your dog. Fuck off. I don't need this, Marvel and God Friended Me. I want you to be real about the state of print media in this country.
This strikes a chord close to home for Evan.
Like, how does no one else complain about this? When was the last time you met or knew of someone who's like, I'm a full-time journalist.
Never in my
I don't
life.
also have a podcast and 1,000 other things in the fire because I don't have health insurance and I need money. Like, that doesn't happen. Oh, but that does for boring white girl and all the people she works with and her dumb coworker who has no interiority or depth except for, oh, I see why you're hanging out with Millennial Prophet. He's hot.
She's shallow as a kiddie pool.
Yeah,
That's
she's
really
basically a silhouette drawn on a wall. She has there's nothing there. But so journalist and PI are hanging out. He talks about the loss of his wife, who was a social worker, and how she was really gifted at her job, blah, blah, blah.
She'd work with cases, and I felt like initially I was like, so obviously this is all interconnected because this is what the show does. So I was like, I didn't see it quite yet.
Yeah, and we're gonna jump ahead because this is you've really heard all the plot, but they figure out who the pickpocket is. They also figure out that the pickpocket is living on his own because a couple months ago his mother was put in jail.
He's like 15 or something.
He's young, 15 or 16-year-old kid, and
they find out his social worker,
because he's living alone. He is going to be put into the foster care system, and then everyone's like, oh, well, what happened to this kid? Where did he get off track? It's like, well, he had this social worker who he was really fond of and who really
this is
worked
all
with
these
him.
people who are telling the Millennial Prophet and Journalist Girl, they're just telling him all this information.
And all of that would be confidential.
None of that would.
It doesn't matter if the social worker is deceased. The kid is still very much alive and still probably has a social worker, who never appeared.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it was so frustrating.
None of this would have been. Everyone's violating HIPAA. Like they're all. Everyone's screwed.
HIPAA doesn't exist in God Friended Me. There's no privacy, and that's how God found Millennial Prophet. But
well, it's sort of like SVU. They get every criminal confesses because otherwise they have to deal with hundreds of hours of the details and minutia. So they're like, we don't have time for that. We're going straight to the end.
Executive producer Dick Wolf. I almost said executive dick producer.
No, that's God.
Yes, it is. Good one. But then, of course, the young boy starts living with the PI guy because they need each other. And who saved who, And the journalists and Millennial Prophet are still doing their will they, won't they nonsense. And there's just, I do think the main actor, Millennial Prophet, has some charisma, but
I would agree.
There's such little depth to the material that
and I was rolling my eyes quite a bit during the show, way more than it would if it's something enjoyable. My eyes are going to be rolling constantly
because the best scenes were when Millennial Prophet was interacting with PI Guy, because they were the two most talented actors on the show, and they could lend some pathos to this awful writing.
Yeah, the writing felt stilted.
And generic white girl is just she's there, and if she's not on screen, you forget she exists. She has such little personality, and her coworker has even less, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's also definitely written by a man because the female characters are either dead or have no they're dead. Their only character trait is that they are gay, or they have no character traits. Those are the three possible women roles in God Friended Me. But predictions, Andy, for season 2 and beyond, because this show was renewed.
Oh man, so we don't know the finale of season 1. So
my guess is they think they're really close to finding out who's behind the God account.
But it's just layers
and
like
then
an onion.
And then it's like a Moriarty reveal where it's like a post-it note left on Millennial Prophet's desk, and he's like, gotcha.
That made me mad too. When I watched Sherlock, that made me angry as well. I was like, get
and
up.
then Millennial Prophet fakes his own death, and then journalist girl's really sad for a while and grows a mustache.
And then there's some supernatural stuff that happens.
Yes, and then Sherlock starts working as a waiter. But meanwhile, generic white girl's gotten engaged, and it's, hilarity ensues.
I think this story arc is a lot more fun.
Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Sherlock. Or know anything about Sherlock.
Yeah.
Or I guess don't know anything. But
if they merge those shows, Add Benedict Cumberbatch to this. God friended me.
And we combine this with our gritty Gilmore Girls reboot. I think that's a show I might watch. I'm not saying it's good, but I might watch it. So yeah, that's God friended me. It's bad, but
it's a bad watch. It qualifies.
Yeah, you know how I'm feeling, Andy? Feeling financial.
Okay, all right, yeah. I feel it too. Feel it in my bones, in my plums.
Don't. No, your plums are not being sponsored.
Hi there, I'm Spike Torino, former brand ambassador of Ghost Free Mattresses and general criminal at large. Join me on my new podcast, A Day in the Life, as I talk with the greatest mobsters of the modern era, finding out what makes them tick and how exactly they've excelled in their profession. Past interviews include Joey Sangetti, the inventor of concrete shoes, as well as Anthony Soprano, the real-life inspiration for the hot HBO program. All this and more on A Day in the Life. Download from your favorite podcatcher today.
And now it's time for Goodwatch. Andy, what do you got?
I recently watched, for the first time, it's been out for quite a while now, Scott Pilgrim, I think it's Versus the World.
Yes.
Having
not seen it, I believe that is what it's called.
It. It was a lot of fun. I can see the appeal. There's a great cast. Don't ask me for names because I'm terrible with those, but it's a really fun cast, and it is a lot, like there's a lot of like they do like manga cartoony kind of tropes.
It's based on a graphic novel.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And so there's like that feel, and there's like a bunch of there's right on the screen when people get punched, and that's sort of a fun call out thing. But it's just a really fun, ridiculous arc of Scott Pilgrim, played by Michael Cera, trying to battle through all of his current girlfriend's exes in order to be able to successfully date her, and it's really a lot of fun.
And the girlfriend is pre-superstardom Brie Larson.
No, Brie Larson is his ex.
Oh,
and she's a singer in a band that he has. Like they're competing against.
What has Michael Cera been up to recently?
I don't know. Disappeared into the woodwork.
I think he had a role in the newer Twin Peaks.
Okay.
But honestly, I'm a little worried about him. Also, I heard
he's probably doing all right for himself.
There's some comedian who made this joke. I don't remember who, otherwise I'd give them proper credit. But they have pointed out that anyone running while wearing a backpack is instantly Michael Cera, and I think of that every time I put on my backpack, and I remember I can't run while wearing this, so I'm not Michael Cera. But
what's your good watch?
My good watch is a little film called Hereditary, starring.
You told me about this.
Starring one of the Wolf brothers. I'm not sure if it's Nat or the other one.
I don't know either, so you're good.
Well, okay, yep. And then there's a little girl and not Annette Bening. God, Toni Collette. I don't know why I always get those two.
Annette Bening? Really? Mixed with Toni?
Annette Bening and Toni Collette. I always get them mixed up for some reason. But this one's Toni Collette. And her husband is the ringleader in The Usual Suspects. He's like an Irish guy.
Oh, yeah, okay. I know who you're talking about. I know the face.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but it's that guy. And it's this family of four. The maternal grandmother passes away, and then shit starts going off the rails. And it is a horror movie, I should clarify. There are some really good jump scares, and there's also like the transition from first act to second act is maybe the most surprised I've ever been watching a movie. It was so unexpected and shocking and awful. And then and it's not one of those films like Get Out is another great movie, and like there's been a lot of really good horror movies recently, but you finish watching Get Out and you're like, oh, he made it out. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert. Probably you've seen it by now, I hope. But
there's a resolution.
There's a resolution, and when you get to the end of Hereditary, it's just you're like, oh no. It starts going down and it never pulls back up, which I thought was a really interesting choice and really unsettling. But it's on Amazon Prime. It's really quite good.
I heard an interview with the director, and he was just like, yeah, I was just wanted to make sure that people saw like messed up stuff that goes on in my thoughts and mind. I remember it's just like, I have a lot of issues, and I wanted to put that out there for people to deal with.
It really is
something like that.
So many horror movies, like, it's a very common trope to sort of like have the creepy child be sort of a metaphor for our society's discomfort with reproduction and like all of that weird stuff that goes on with that. And it plays with that in a really interesting way with the young daughter and the mother and the deceased grandmother and also the son to some extent. And it's really wild. I kind of want to watch it again, but it really is scary. So
well, maybe we could watch it together, because I don't like horror movies. I don't like being scared, but I think maybe if you have a partner, I'd be okay with watching it.
I mean, I do.
If you hold my hand.
I would be prepared. I would be prepared for all the scary bits.
Last time I watched a somewhat scary movie with Evan,
Quiet Place. We were in the theater. I was crawling out of my skin.
He was jumping around in the chair. And I was
there's
like,
that
chill out.
scene in A Quiet Place where they're in their house and their basement's filled with water, and you see across the basement that one of the aliens, and it just slithers into the water. Sometimes I close my eyes at night and I see that image, and I'm immediately wide awake. If you've seen A Quiet Place, you know the scene I'm talking about, because it is really fucking creepy. But that's my good watch for this week. I'm getting goosebumps talking about that. He's Andy.
That guy's Evan.
And this is Badwatch.